This your boy Karl Kirk. So like I said, man, we done talked about relationships that burn up our goals. So now we want to talk about different things again that burn up our goals. We said number one was relationships. The people who surround us can affect us reaching our goals. Number two is most important. When we don't reach our goals, it's because maybe there's different things that happen in our life, tragedies and different things. The unfortunate part about life is we don't control it, right? So we know that many things can happen. Maybe we lose a grandmother, maybe we lose a child. So many different things happen in our life. And I understand it because, believe it or not, I haven't even lost a child in my own life. And when I did, it was a major, part of depression. A lot of bad things happen in my life. It's a lot of chaos. You don't know, where did you make bad decisions here and there, even when it wasn't any of your fault, even when it was sickness. And in my case, my child died due to sickness. But what do? We have to still get up and live. We don't have any choice because that's how life works. No matter what the situations are that happen in our life, no matter how they are, they will cause us to get back up, and we got to stay focused in. So this is your boy Karl Kirk talking to you. I remember when I was in the military, there was a gentleman, and I'm not going to mention his name. He lost his son, and before he lost his son, he was telling me, the story about it. He's like, Carlton, he's like, man, I was praying and praying, hoping God was going to heal my son. He said, and it went on for a year, and then all of a sudden one day I'm thinking, this is going to be the day my son's going to come out of the hospital. My son's going to be well. Then he said, man, basically he went to the hospital one day and the doctors and nurses met him at the door, told him that his son had passed away. Major tough situation to happen in somebody's life. And I get it that this can be the point where some of us want to give up ourselves. It's the point where many of us want to say, hey, you know what? It's not worth moving on from here. But let me tell you, not only do you have to move on, you have to not only move on for yourself, but you have to move on for that person. That person believes that you were a strong person, that you're a person that they could depend on, that you were a person that they could confide in. So you still have to be that person to many other people. What I had to realize is I still now had other children. I had other things that I had to get back up, and I had to definitely remember my daughter as much as I could and just move on with my life. And I've seen a lot of times where many catastrophic things happen in people's life, maybe even in war. I've been in war, and I've seen some guys, they can go over to war and they able to put things in the right perspective, in the right place, when other guys came back and they've suffered through different things, like you've heard about PTSD and things like that. These things are devastating in our life, and I'm not going to ever minimize those things in our lives. But let me motivate you that you cannot sit in those things forever. There's a time for mourning. There's a time for you to focus on those things. There's a time where you put your energy into those things. There's a time where you put your energy into coming out of those things. But you have to get to a point where you understand, okay, you know what? I didn't control that situation, but I did my best in that situation. And now that situation has to be in my past. I have to focus on my future. So this is where I'm coming from. This is your boy Karl Kirk trying to talk to you, that you have to not allow devastation to take you off your goals. Just because you get in a devastated situation does not mean that you weren't meant to do certain things in life. When I look at my life, I realize that there's still things that I have to do in my life. And I'm realizing now, at my age in my 40s, that I got to get up right now and I have to focus on those things. I have to make accomplishments. I have to do some of those things that I've always dreamed of, knowing that those things not only impact my life, but they impact other people's life. So what do? I get in there and I start grinding again. I start working towards things again and realize that there's still a purpose, there's still a destiny for me. And once I started doing that, I began to understand that there's still life ahead, and that even in life, you're gonna find situations where you have to make sacrifices that you don't want to sacrifice. You're gonna have to deal with things that you don't want to have to deal with. But what you cannot do is give up in a situation. You can't lay down. You can't begin to give up. You can't begin to come to a place where you decide that it's time for you to give up because somebody is gone out of your life. It happens. We can't control it. But what I have learned is that if you keep fighting and if you keep getting up, there's always going to be a brighter day. So what do? We have to get past the point where devastating things that happen in our life do not affect the goals that we have set in our life. Many times the goals in our life aren't just goals. Those things are part of our purpose. I think about Ray Charles, and I don't know if any of you guys probably saw the movie, but in that movie with Ray Charles, his mom realized that her son was blind. And when she realized he was blind and she realized all the things that were going on with him, she could have approached that in so many ways. She could have treated him as if like he was just another handicapped kid. She could have kind of made him into a situation where there's no way he could possibly do anything for himself. There's no way he can still learn. She could have came up with so many things, but she looked at his situation and she saw that no matter what, he had to go on in life, because even though the plight that he was given in life, that he had to get up and he had to do something about where he is and where his life was. And I thought it was amazing just how he learned the piano. And not only had he learned the piano, he began to realize that his gift was in that piano. He began to understand and begin to get connected with that piano. And then it took from the piano to his singing. And his singing and the piano combined together allowed opportunities to come from him. And even though people began to look at him as a wonder, he began to understand that he had the ability that many people had who had eyes, ears, and everything else, but those people had not even put the effort and the functionality in to accomplish the things like he accomplished. So I found it great when you hear his story. If you've ever watched the movie, it was a great movie that I believe rightly depicted, from what I understand, his life was. And that's what we have to do. You can look in so many people's lives where they had handicaps and different things that affected their life, but what they never did is they never allowed those life-altering events to put them in a place of no return. Nothing can happen in your life, and you have to make it up in your mind that nothing can happen in your life where you don't focus on the purpose for which you were born to do. You have to fulfill your purpose. You have to accomplish the thing for which you were created to do. And when the day you don't do that is the day that all of us begin to die. So you have to keep fighting for doing the right thing. You have to keep fighting to do the impossible with your life. When I look at people's lives and I see people, and being a motivator like I am, if I see people and I talk to people and I see that they're not happy with their life, the first thing I try to do is try to help them to just get a look and a focus on their life so that they can get their life in order to fulfill the thing that they really desire to do. I've talked to people sometime and they told me different things that they were doing. And when I've talked to them, they were like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go to school to be a doctor. And I'm like, oh, wow. So you've always dreamed about being a doctor and always wanted to be a doctor? And it's like, well, no, not really. Okay, so do you just want to help people and you've always had a heart to help people in the medical field? No, not really. Not really. That's not something I want to do. But what they really came to a conclusion of is that what they wanted to do is be a doctor because they felt like it was a good paying job. They felt like they wanted to be a doctor because it was something that their parents wanted them to do. So when I looked at that, I was like, what kind of motivation is that? How are they going to continue being motivated through 10 years of medical school to be a doctor when it's not even their desire to be a doctor? So what I had to come to the conclusion of is that many people will never fulfill their dreams because they're doing things that are politically correct. They're doing things that are financially correct. They're doing things that are culturally correct. And those things will always come back to hurt you, harm you, and haunt you. Why would those things hurt you, haunt you, and hurt you, haunt you, and never help you? This is the reason why. Because at the end of that rainbow, there's not a pot of gold. Why? Because you're going to get at the end of that thing and realize that your heart wasn't in it, that your mind wasn't in it, and that you weren't in it. That basically you were going through the motions, and because you were going through the motions, when you got to the end of it, you're gonna find an emptiness. You're not gonna find the goals, the hearts, the mind, the feeling that you really want when you get there. So what am I telling you? What is your boy Karl Kirk telling you? What I'm telling you is that you have to put those goals always back in front of you. Do we have to put them down sometimes? Yes, we do. Do we have to sometime when maybe we have to take a pause on our goals? You can take a pause, but you can't press stop. Do you hear me? You can take a pause, but you cannot press stop. If you press stop in your life, most times you won't return back to the thing that you're supposed to do. So what am I telling you to do? You got to make up in your mind that you're always fighting for it. Anything worth having is worth fighting for. Many times the reason why we're going through situations, many times the reason why it feels like it's so hard and like we're going up against a brick wall sometimes is because to make it to the other side is worth the fight that we're fighting. But if we don't fight through these things, we'll never reach our goals. Again, I'm telling you the things that are blocking our goals. It's first relationships, then it's devastating events that happen in our life. When those devastating events happen in our life, we begin to break ourselves. We begin to hurt ourselves. We begin to connect ourselves to those devastating things. Don't get me wrong, we need to mourn with those who mourn. Don't get me wrong, we need to cry with people who cry. Don't get me wrong, sometimes we have to hug. Sometimes we have to take a break on us and put energy and time into other people. But what I'm telling you is that that energy and that time has to be something that's temporary. It can't be something that we constantly spend with time. Do you know when you get connected with certain people who can't let things go, no matter how hard or how easy they are, they will begin to drain energy from you. When you begin to allow someone to drain energy from you, man, it's such a depressing feeling. You feel like you have a weight on your back, and it's that person, because that person has committed themselves to being somber about a situation that nobody can control, that nobody can no longer fix no better than what it already is. Like I said, again, we do want to be sensitive. When tragedies happen, we have to be sensitive. But we cannot make tragedies, we can't make our response to tragedies permanent. As soon as we make our response to tragedies permanent, we begin to soak, we begin to hurt ourselves. There's always a reason to fight on because there's still some fight left if you're still breathing. If you're still breathing, you still have a purpose. And if you still have a purpose, you got to keep going on. So you don't give up. We fight on, right? So where I'm at is that I want you to really focus in on this point of reaching your goal. When devastation happens, we can't give up. We cannot make that thing permanent. That thing has to remain temporary. We're fighting something. And we're fighting all the things that are going to come in our life, all the things that have already been predestined in our life that will become obstacles from us being who we were already created to be. Because what's in you is natural. It's natural for me to talk to people. It's natural for me to motivate people. It's natural for me to write books. It's natural for me to sing. It's natural for me to play sports. It's natural for me to do certain things in my life. And those things, they bring peace to my life when I do those things. When I hear my book and it's on audio, and they're working on the audio, and I listened to the audio today, man, I was so amazed to hear words that I wrote down, that I sat down and typed. Those things make me feel good. But this is after many, many tragedies in my life. So many different things happen in my life. When I think about it, I think about I've been homeless as a child before. We stayed in the House of Mercy in Columbus, Georgia. I remember living in one-bedroom apartment with 5 kids and my mom. I remember living in the projects where people were shooting and killing people all the time, seemed like it. I remember living in foster care. So many tragedies happened in my life, but those things cannot be permanent reasons why I don't fulfill my life and why I don't fulfill my goals. Been through divorce, been through different things, whether it was my fault or whether it wasn't. Those are different tragedies. These are things that came in my life. These are things that happened in my life that I had to realize that I had to make them temporary. I couldn't sit there crying and couldn't sit there being upset at people. I couldn't sit there in a place where I never was going to move again and make up in my mind that life ain't worth it. This is what it is. No, that was a part of my life. It was some scenarios in my life, but it was not the end. If everybody's life is a movie, you're gonna have good and bad parts in the movie. But in the end of the movie is where you decide it is. And I'm deciding that my life, my movie, is gonna have a happy ending. So you have to make up in your mind that that's what you're gonna have. You cannot make any tragedy permanent in your life. It has to be temporary. We're fighting something. We're making it through something, and we're gonna make it through together. Your boy Karl Kirk, I'm here to fight with you. I'm here to fight with you. I'm gonna do great things with you. I'm doing great things for myself. I'm gonna drop all the stuff that I have on you. But even if I can do anything for you, I wanna help people. I wanna connect with people. I wanna coach people. I wanna show people that, again, tragedies are temporary and not permanent in your life.